Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Alright folks, we are almost there. We're at episode 11, which means we only have this one and one more. It's the penultimate one. We're in the losers bracket today because I messed up big time in my last match, and that was the first time I've ever lost 2 matches in a row, so hopefully we don't make it a third. I'm also at my 99th win overall since Grand Arena started. I would love to get my 100th win, though to be fair, I don't really care that much about that specific stat. And yeah, I'm just excited to do another 3v3. Pretty soon we'll probably be doing 5v5 again, so let's just make it count if possible. Alright, so jumping into the stats here. My opponent does have significantly more GP than me, which is something I never look at except when I'm doing these stats here when I'm making the video, just not as relevant. My opponent does have more high-end relics than I do, which, I have more low-end relics. Overall, that's an advantage that can go to him. I don't really mind being disadvantaged there. In terms of Zetas, I do have more Zetas. I have more gear 13, though my opponent has more gear 12, probably more access to his roster overall, and then our speed mods are actually pretty similar to each other. So, pretty close there. In terms of overall effectiveness in Grand Arena, I would say that I hold the advantage, though, at this point it's been kind of diluted. Who knows if my opponent has just taken off an entire season, or just didn't care about the last one that didn't have Zetas in it, or maybe they're just, not as good at 5v5 as they are at 3v3, so that those numbers don't really tell us anything at this point. I really wish that they would split them up a little bit. So otherwise, looking at my opponent's deployment in the past, I knew that my opponent would almost certainly not be putting Darth Revan on defense, and so I decided to keep my own Darth Revan on defense as well. And jumping into this, my opponent's defenses were the exact same as their scouting report, so nothing too surprising. As usual, we need to clear these first 3 squads in the first zone, the bottom one, just so that we know all the different teams that we need to face and we can plan accordingly. Our first match of the day is going to come in the form of General Grievous versus my clone team, and this is kind of a new counter that I've been working on a little bit, just because I wanted to be able to put my Jedi Revan on defense, and that meant that I needed some other way to be able to take out General Grievous. And I'm still not sure if this is the right counter that I want to use or not. It definitely worked last time. I think it works consistently, but I also don't know if it's going to be cost effective, as you guys will see. I'm all about efficiency, and whereas that may annoy my buddy Indigo, that's the game I play. So and this is definitely not playing into efficiency. So the goal here is to just try to take out B2 if we can. If we can't, then that's fine. We're just trying to bide our time until Fives gets killed, and you'll see that Fives is taunting right now, and that's not what we want. We want him to not be taunting, just because we want Rex to sacrifice himself, and so I'm making a mistake here. I'm not really sure why. Looking at this, I'm like, I don't know why I did that. However, Rex has low enough health that he still got taken out first, and now we already have our Annihilate up. We do over 400,000 damage to General Grievous, so he's gone. And now, B1, he's great as a supplementary character. He's really strong, and he's really well reliced and geared and modded, all of those things, but he's not good enough to carry a team. So 48 banners here. I dropped 6 total. My normal Jedi Knight Revan team probably gets 52 or 53 there, and so I'm dropping 4 or 5 banners. I don't know if that's worth it for the trade-off in defense. I'm just not sure. So we'll continue doing this for a little bit. At least I got the first hit win, so that's nice. And now we're going to jump into the next battle, which is against another clone team, and I'm using my Padme team, and you'll see that I'm using Ahsoka here instead of General Kenobi, and that's kind of a departure from my norm. I know that in last episode I did the same thing, but my General Kenobi's on defense, and Ahsoka didn't really have anywhere to go anyway, so I decided this is maybe a good opportunity to maximize my roster. So, she gives a lot more offense, at least. Maybe not as much staying power. It's hard to replace a General Kenobi at Relic 7. I mean, really, like, kind of impossible to replace him in a lot of ways. But, she does a lot of good things. She has a Dispel on her basic, and you'll see that Rex tried to annihilate her, and he just, missed. So I got pretty lucky there. And honestly, maybe this wasn't the best choice to try to take on this clone team. It would have been nice to be able to use, Commander Luke would be perfect for this match, but I want to save him just because he does a lot better against, at least for me, against Revan teams and everything, and anyways, after I was able to take out 5s, then the rest of the clones folded, and now I'm going to make you guys wait the way I had to wait. I was starting to get nervous that maybe my Wi-Fi had given out and I wasn't going to have the win recorded. And so I'm just waiting, and eventually I just decided to turn off my Wi-Fi and use the 4G, and that's usually a good trick if you're waiting for a long time. So 52 banners there. That's great. That means that one of my characters didn't even lose protection. And now we just have this Bossk team. And this is the Bossk team. Well, it's not the same Bossk team, but it's a similar Bossk team to the one that I got stuck on in the last episode. The difference being I actually have the teams to be able to deal with Bossk this time. I didn't squander some of those teams that I had squandered in my last one. So I decided not to mess around. I wanted to take my Jedi Training Rate team against these guys, and this is not only kind of a mismatch in terms of overall kit and mechanics and everything, it's also a mismatch in gear. The Bossk is definitely at he's relic, he's strong, he's tough to kill, but the other 2 bounty hunters are only gear 12, and I have all 3 of these guys at relic 1, I believe. Maybe R2 has a little bit more, but overall, it's not much. So you see that R2 used his smoke, and it's kind of a funny move. I use that move sometimes, even when I'm facing Dengar. Dengar prevents, when he's in stealth, he prevents R2 from giving anyone else stealth. So it's kind of a waste of a move in some ways, and in other ways, it's good because you want to get Illuminated Destiny off as soon as you can, and you're not going to add anything to Illuminated Destiny just by doing your basic. However, if I had thought of it a little bit more, I probably would have actually gone for the stun instead of Illuminated Destiny buff. So, just because that actually impacts the rest of the match, as opposed to, doing stealth, he just twirls around, and some numbers change that I'm not even aware of, modifying that cooldown for Illuminated Destiny. And I would rather probably just be stunning people, frankly. So, anyways, still got 52 banners here. R2 is about to explode, but I'm okay with that. He's often about to explode. And we've got the first zone cleared without using any really important teams. In the back had a lot of, it's a hodgepodge of things that you kind of expect. The Teebo team had me scratching my head. Really still kind of baffled at what my opponent wanted to do with that. But now, one of the things that I've started to do in 3v3 is kind of seek out a specific team to use Nest for. Nest can solo things, as you can see. I'm getting a little more brave. I used to want Kira to hold her hand a lot. Now I'm starting to recognize that Nest can kind of just do her own thing against a lot of teams. There are other teams that you definitely want to use Kira with. Teams that are a little more sketchy for her, but I have a Relic 7 Nest, and she's really well modded in my opinion. She has really high tenacity at 160, or just under 160. It's 159.7 or something, she's really well modded. Great offense, and 55 banners there, easy enough. It's just a timeout team. There was no special resilience there added, so happy enough to take that win. And after I won that, I saw that my opponent had actually attacked and taken out 2 of my teams. So on my bottom zone, you see my Darth Revan still standing, which is great. Obviously, you want him to survive as long as possible. He actually got a defense, which is wonderful. It's a departure from what happened in my last round. But then my General Kenobi team with Jolie and Hoda Daka got taken out. My Grievous team, which really isn't intended to survive past one match, also got exploded. And the hope there, putting Grievous in the front, was just to make sure that my opponent, used their Jedi Knight Revan for what squads are in the back. So we'll look at my defense in a little bit. For now, we're going to focus on my offense. And so one thing that I've really been trying to do when changing up my roster is, I've been putting stronger teams on defense as I discover more teams that I can use that are viable on offense. So you can see here I'm using this Wampa lead team, and, he doesn't have a leadership, of course. So, you don't actually gain anything from that specifically, but what you do gain on this team is just the fact that you have Watt here, so he's providing the weapons tech for Wampa, which means that any hits from Wampa that take a character out will not allow revives, and that's really important against Night Sisters. Of course, they love their revives. And then I have Xaereth Rebel Pathfinder here, who is just a tank who has a lot of hit points. I've put so many Carbanti into him. I've suffered so long trying to get him up to gear 12. I really love the opportunity to use him every once in a while, so that's what I'm doing here. And it's a little bit tricky here. I wasn't anticipating Plague to be quite as effective. You see that the Rebel Pathfinder is at like 10 stacks of Plague already, which is crazy, not awesome, but he did have a buff on him, so when he got taken out, he actually just revived himself, which is pretty cool. And now I can use Watt to put the taunting tech on him again. So we're just rinsing, repeating, waiting for Wampa to ramp up his damage. And now that Talzin's gone, we can just rest easy, because she's not going to do anything anymore. She's just gone out for the count. Normally if Zombie or Acolyte use a basic, Talzin would usually just pop up and fry me, use her basic, and that's not possible because she's technically reviving in that instance. So Talzin's gone, and then I was able to do an AoE from Wampa that just killed Acolyte outright. And we got a 51 banner win with 2 characters with full protection and only one of them with full health, because Plague messes with people. So happy enough with that win. Maybe not as perfect as I was hoping for, but that team, it took out a pretty problematic one, and we can just move on to the next match. So that's always awesome. And the next one we want to look at is Shaak T team with Cody and Clone Sergeant. So, the leftover clones with the random leftover Jedi who no longer has a role now that General Skywalker is kind of here, and Rex is also a really capable lead. So, walking into this, Shaak T has relics. The other 2 are just gear 12. I don't want to underestimate them. Cody doesn't have a lot of offense, and Sergeant does at higher relic levels. But, he's better as a supplement to a larger squad, frankly. He is good. He can do some good things, certainly, but, it's not necessarily going to be that tough. So I decided to take out Clone Sergeant first because his total hit points were way lower than Shaak T's. And you see that I just randomly hit Cody there, and the reason I hit him was I just wanted to avoid getting countered and having to regenerate all that protection that she was going to make me regrow. And I'm just trying to maximize my banners here, and they're running out of hit points pretty quick, so I wasn't really sure if I was going to actually be able to maximize my banners, which I wasn't. 52 banners in 3v3, you learn to live with 52. I mean, 53 is better, obviously 54 is as well, but in the long run, you get the first hit kill, then you're good to go. At least that's, in my opinion, that's a success. So now we're going to try taking out this Night Sisters team. There's no taunting tank or anything, but they do have a lot of really potent characters. I'm taking bounty hunters here just because bounty hunters do not allow for revives at all, and Bossk is the exception, and I guess Boba using his basic attacks also allows for that, but the thing that we're really going for here is just getting one-hit kills. We can ignore Daka because she doesn't do a lot of damage. She does stuns, which is frustrating, but Spirit does the most damage by far. And the thing is, normally, if you try to take this team out, you have to kill Daka first, because Daka will just revive the other two, if not. But the awesome thing in this situation is I'm just ignoring revives, similar to using my Watt and Wampa to deny those revives. I'm also just with these bounty hunters, I'm able to ignore their revives from Jango, any attack that he does, and Boba does his execute, ignores revives, and Daka is mostly just a stun machine at that point, which is great. She's still good, but there's no taunting tank. That team really isn't that much of a challenge if you have a pretty strong bounty hunter team. And I'm actually thinking about trying that team out with a different lead, like a different bounty hunter, and that way I can actually put Bossk on defense, where he's really strong, and the Fets don't really need a different lead, frankly. Like maybe I could even use Jango as lead. I don't know. We'll talk about that later, I suppose. Or at least I will. You guys probably won't hear the conversation, for being honest. So this team kind of confounded me, and I wanted to try something new. Like, after looking at all their kits, I decided this was just like a last-ditch attempt at timing me out. Vandor has the synergy with L3 that, they'll let you revive and do all these things, but otherwise, there's not much synergy here. So I just decided I wanted to take my Vader lead team. I've wanted to do a Vader strangle team for a while now, and watching some of End-All Be-All's videos lately using his Vader to do things, as lead, it really made me want to revisit that. I used to do a lot of these, slowly take out a team with dots, damage over time effects, and I've kind of gotten away from that for whatever reason. So that team had no offense, and I decided it was a great opportunity to use Vader Strangle. I used, Thrawn to tie up L3 so that they didn't get the revive loop going with Vandor and L3. But otherwise, Canderous is great because he's just constantly adding so much damage over time. He's a character I don't think I've used in Grand Arena 3v3 so far, so just decided to go for that. Easy enough win. And now we've got my Commander Luke team up against this Nute team with Nest, and honestly, I decided, I have other teams that can deal with Nest, but she was only gear 12, and looking at her health, she didn't have a huge health pool. I decided I probably had a decent shot at just taking this team out. Otherwise, I wanted to try out my Geonosians, honestly, but Geonosians don't work as well against Nest. They can, but they have to get the right setup, and I don't have any experience with that. So decided to use Commander Luke. Easy enough to just take her out. I had way too many relics on that team to really justify using it, but honestly, there wasn't much challenge left. I still had a lot of really strong characters remaining, and the Commander Luke team seemed to fit the bill best, and I was absolutely confident in being able to win that match. So jumped in, and now I can use my Geonosians here against another team. And this is a Poggle team with Droideka and Magna Guard. So the goal here, really the only threat at all to my continued existence against this team, was Droideka. And once you take Droideka out, and he's fairly easy to kill if you can get through his awesome move that lets him ignore protection. And after you get through that, then you're good. So, Spy does have a Dispel. I decided not to trust in that, and I took Sunfac instead, so that means that I have less damage here. But I also have, I still have a lot of hitting power with Spy. He does a lot of damage. The Brute can do a lot of damage in certain circumstances. And really, you're just trying to pummel these guys down anyways. So we got Days on Magna Guard. Otherwise, he'd be really annoying right now. Another benefit of having Sunfac on the team. And now we're just chopping him down. He did one last FU AoE, and he took one of my banners away. So FU indeed, Magna Guard. But we can move on from this match, and now we've cleared the top zone. We can work on the ship zone. I wasn't even interested to see what ship it was for some reason, just because my opponent always puts Negotiator on defense, and if they put Mace on there as a surprise, then that would be a welcome surprise. And in this last match, normally I'm trying to split up my Traya team. I use Nihilus on a different for a different team or something, but in this case, like that wasn't necessary. This is the last team remaining already, so we're just jumping in here against Barriss or Bastila lead. Sorry, and actually I'm not sorry, but anyways. I was contemplating for a little bit just not even putting Isolate on any of the characters because I like the idea of all of them just countering me a lot, and they're going to do their damage. They're going to take my protection down, of course, and I'm not going to be able to regrow it except for on Scion, but they're also going to kill themselves over time because every time they attack out of turn, Traya's lead is going to make them lose 35% of their max health every time. So that, I'm doing damage passively. It's the same principle that you use when you're facing the Geonosians. You let them kill themselves rather than you killing them. So I did put days on Ayla. I decided I didn't want too many counters, so took out Bastila there pretty easy, and now we can just take out Ayla. They're all just gear 12. Not really that strong of a team. This team can be really tough though, actually, in the right circumstance. Like if you have the right Jedi here, and if you've run your opponent out of teams, then this team could be really tough to deal with. Like there's not a ton of DPS, damage per second, but you don't necessarily need it. They have decent amounts of protection, regeneration, and all of that stuff, I think, from Bastila. Now I'll have to read her lead just to verify. But one thing I do want to point out, I was saving Sion's big hit for the last there just so he could regenerate that last bit of protection so it didn't get whittled down at all. So I did manage to squeak out one extra banner there. And just like that, I'd already cleared all of my opponent's teams relatively quickly, and now there was just ships. I was excited to finish this relatively easy match in terms of the offense involved anyways. But my opponent did attack at that point and took out my Karth team, which keeps being a mistake. I don't want Karth to be on defense. It's not really that effective at this point, but as it was, he was there, he got taken out. And then my opponent was in the middle of attacking my Jedi, or my Darth Revan team again, which is just Malak at that point. So I was pretty sure they were going to take him out, but I decided to just jump into ships anyways and full clear him. So he had a nice present once he was done dispatching my Malak. He could see the full clear, if that was possible anyways. Hopefully I could do a one-shot win here. Now we're just doing the same old thing. We're trying to do enough damage to Jedi Knight Anakin's ship so that their AI, if their Negotiator, which is the same speed as mine, if they ended up going first, then they would use, instead of using the daze attack, they would use the buff attack. And you see that they did put buffs up, so my ploy was successful. You need to get Jedi Knight Anakin up to somewhere around 40% of his health, no protection in some of his health, for that to actually work. Once you do that, then the rest of the battle is, I won't say exactly formulaic, because there are certain elements to it that can really mess with you. But you want to take in a tank that taunts, so Clone Sergeant is great for that. Another reason to gear him up. I need to get him to gear 13 at some point. Put the AoE on Houndstooth, and hopefully it also puts buff immunity on him, so then you can just really take him out and he's not regaining protection all the time. And now, I was questioning, normally what I want to do is take Plo in here, but my opponent hasn't had their daze attack yet, and so that didn't really work. So what I ended up doing, I took Fives in instead, and he put target lock onto my opponent's Jedi Knight Anakin, and once I did that, then he could use his AoE and take out Anakin, because he had taken enough turns that his immunity buff thing was already gone, so I could get past that Sunfac taunt anyways. And now we have an ineffective Y-Wing in, and so there's just all these tanks floating around with Fives, who's kind of a tank as well. And so I threw in my B-Wing bombers, because that's at least a fun animation. And now we're just working on these guys. We're shooting the Y-Wing because we don't want to get countered by fives. Fives went. Now he's dazed because of the Y-Wing bombs. And, we can just take him out. We're looking for opportunities to regenerate our health and protection, but there aren't any. And so I just took the one that did the least damage just in case something popped up. Ahsoka got her healing thing up, which didn't do anything really, because it's just bonus protection, and it didn't actually heal her. And, in the end, you just have to accept it. So, 56 banners is not great, not wonderful at all. Would have rather had 66 and gotten a 10-point swing there, but, it happens. Now I'll have a 7-star negotiator moving forward. So, anyways, got 2453, not my best total by any stretch, but still a pretty decent result overall. I one shot all of my opponent's teams, and they were looking to do the same, except they did have one fail against my Darth Revan team. So I'm just going to go through all of my defenses really quick. You can kind of just see as my teams start to shrink, and they're taking out my Jedi Revan team, my pretty strong Night Sisters team. And, they're kind of just doing what I do, like bouncing back and forth and probably just, taking out the teams they see as the most threatening. So you can see that my top zone is gone now. That HK team is worthless. Honestly, I need to replace it at some point. Then my fleet got one shot, and so it was looking kind of close, actually. Like, my opponent was doing really well, and then they failed a couple times against my clones. They failed a couple more times, and Shaak T actually regained some of her health, and then she died on the 4th attempt. And then after that, it was all over but the Cryon. So my opponent did end up getting the full clear on me, took out all of my different teams. But I did get I managed a pretty comfortable win, won by about 42 banners. Actually, exactly 42 banners. So happy enough with that. I actually had done the calculation earlier at one point to see what their max score was, if they got the max soft maximum scores on everything, and it was pretty assured that I was going to be able to take the win, but who knows. So we'll look at my defenses now, just a little bit longer look. My Jedi or Darth Revan team took a couple hits to be able to kill. My top zone posed no problem to my opponent. My Relic 3 Stormtrooper Han is apparently not that great of a leader at this point. Then the Shaak T clones came in clutch. Echo can do an obscene amount of damage, and Shaak T can really help facilitate that. So I'm sure that that's probably what ended up happening. He just kept throwing his AoE or something crazy. My Millennium Falcon fleet didn't even get a reinforcement in, so that was a pretty one-sided loss. After my attacks, I was less than 2,000 away from being able to make Kyber. So you see here, I took the screenshot after I got the victory point win. I did get into Kyber. You can see this is the prizes from Kyber. Pretty cool. Got some stun guns and Zetas, which is really the only things I care about at this point. And yeah, I was really happy to get a bounce back win after having a couple rough matches. My opponent had saved so much for offense. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't get through all of my teams super easily, but I did have a faster Darth Revan team, so that's always going to be problematic. And I don't think that they had the same kind of luck using Padme as my last round opponent did, one-shotting my Darth Revan team, which they were surprised about. And otherwise, got my 100th win, which is great. Won my penultimate match, so, we'll see you in the slightly higher losers bracket for the finals in a couple days. And anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.